that's enough about Big Ten Media Day. Looking forward to the next conversation, which is about Penn State Media Day. Steve, I don't have opinions, but we did. Did you do your homework assignment? Did you remember to do your
I
homework
think
assignment?
so. I think I have it. I'm ready to
Okay.
go.
All right. All right. So Steve and I put together a little list of questions. Steve is gonna go second, I think, if that's fair. He was tasked with putting together 5 questions the media should ask, and I was tasked with putting together the 5 questions the media will ask at Penn State Media Day. I feel like Penn State Media Day is probably the best content day of the year for Penn State football, outside of maybe the big bowl press conference kind of media day that we get closer to the bowl game. So I am excited to see what that has happened. You probably get to hear from some players that you haven't necessarily got to hear from in the past, since freshmen typically aren't available. We'll probably get more Drew Allar talk. We'll probably get more Nick Singleton talk and Katron Allen talk. So I'm excited about that. So here are my 5 questions. I think the first one is pretty obvious, is when will Drew or when will you decide the starter? I think that is kind of the number one most pressing question that Franklin beat around the bush on again at Big Ten Media Day. Doing I think it's more politically correct. More than anything, I think it would be stunning if Drew Allar is not the starter come September 2nd. My second question is one that relates to the running backs, because I think this is really the area that nobody's talking about, that probably we'll get into on the blog later next week. Yes, I forget. I have to look at the content calendar, but how do you make sure that these running backs avoid the sophomore slump? They were incredible last year. They were dynamic duo, 1A and 1B. I don't know, gun to my head, I don't know who I would choose to start type thing, because they each bring different attributes to the table that I like, especially as somebody that enjoys watching, football where you run it down the middle or you run it up the gut a bunch of times. We do know that, and Deion Barnes, I think, certainly is probably the poster child of Penn State for sophomore slumps. It can and is much easier to happen in college football. So I think answering the question is how is the line improved? And I think that's where that's gonna go. Anything you want to add there, Steve?
Nope, I would say the answer is the line, but go ahead, you do.
Yeah. Okay. All right. The next question is on the defensive side of the ball. What does Chop Robinson need to show to step up in 2023? I think he is, by all means, the most hyped player on maybe not Abdul Carter level, the number 2 hyped player on defense this season. Certainly probably the most watched at the scout level. So I'm interested to see what he'll do. I'm sure Chop Robinson will be asked about at the press conference. Go ahead.
True. Can't wait to hear it.
All right. Number 4 comes regards back to kind of, it was either before Blue White, that one press conference right around Blue White. And James Franklin made this massive stink and everybody wrote about it related to leadership. So I think the question is going to be where is that leadership coming from? And who is that? Is it Adisa Isaac, which was kind of hinted at Big Ten Media Day? Is it Keaton Ellis, also hinted at Big Ten Media Day? Is it Olu? So I'm interested to see how that conversation has grown, because I think that was actually probably, when you look at Penn State's roster, athletically, on paper, it's a very good roster. Like, you feel safe with it. The intangible stuff, the stuff that you can't put down on paper is really where you start to not be concerned, but you don't have Sean Clifford anymore. You don't have kind of a one wide receiver kind of chosen. You lose a Joey Porter Jr., who maybe wasn't necessarily a leader, but was at least a strong asset to have on the field. So yeah, I think that to me is one of the biggest questions outside of the Drew Allar situation is where is that coming from?
I think that's a process, right? I think it happens during camp, you might think it's one place if you're on the team, right? Or on the coaching staff. Then you get in the first couple of games, like, oh, okay, it's this because this kid's performing. And then you get into a game where you got to fight to maybe win, say Illinois or something on the road. That's an early challenge. And then you figure, oh, okay, this is, yep, it's confirmed that these people are, oh, it turns out it's somebody else. So I don't know that there's going to be an answer week one for a team that's lost that much. I think it's going to develop through the season.
Yeah. I really agree. All right. And I think the last question will be the big picture kind of off the cuff question of, is NIL getting better and how has it gotten better? Or how has it not gotten better over the last however many seasons or months, especially since the merger? So I think that's those are kind of my 5 pressing questions, I guess I would say. Do you think I missed anything there, Steve?
No, and I think those all get asked. I guess I'd be surprised if those don't get asked. So yeah. So you said should ask. I think I was thinking should/will not ask in mind. So what the media should ask or will not ask. So my first one's probably the most innocuous question. Pick any player you want. What class are you most looking forward to this semester? I just think, and it goes to grumpiness a little bit on NIL and student athlete, whatever else. I don't think anybody ever asks about somebody's academics, right? Like, so the chance of somebody asking a football player on media day about what class they're looking forward to this semester, or which one they scheduled that they're most anxious about, I would be shocked if it happened.
That's a good point, Steve. That's a good point.
Second question is a process question. Just looking and I think this is fair. It's not what I sort of thought of. Oh, this is kind of mean. I think it's fair. Like, as a football player / NIL recipient, like, how does the process work? Like, not asking you to tell me, but do you get a check once a month? Like, what? It just, like, how does the process work? How do you know what's going on? And what does this collective thing mean for you?
I have wondered that since day one. Like, and we even joked about this back in NIL when NIL came around. But could we say, all right, Mr. Penn State golfer, can we give you $5 and you come on the podcast type thing? Like, how does that work? Do I just Venmo you $5? Do I have to send that to someone and then they distribute it back to you? Is there taxes involved? That's the other thing in all of this. I don't know that type of situation. I mean, my wages are taxed. Are they considered wages? I forget. So that's a good question. That's a good question, Steve.
Yeah, and I mean, from process, whatever. I just thought it was interesting. This one, what do you most or least like about most and least? So it's one of those give me both things about being a Penn State student athlete. What are the perks of this gig, and what are the challenges? Or something along those lines, just to hear where their headspace is at. Again, I think it could be interesting, but I also think it's kind of innocuous. Like, what's the challenge? Like, you get, that kind of stuff. But piggybacking off the Franklin question that you mentioned earlier about guys potentially leaving and the hinting and him saying, hey, we know. I'm curious, what would it take for you to leave Penn State? Like, yeah. Coach Franklin said, hey, this happened. So certainly players were approached. He's told everybody players were approached by this. What would it take you to leave Penn State? Or maybe that's properly worded as how much would it take you to leave Penn State, but I don't know if it's a how much or a would, or what would, So, but I think either one of those, just the mindset.
Yeah, I don't think that's one of those questions you ask, and you're not probably going to get the honest answer on. I'm never leaving Penn State. Right.
But I think with the context of him having said, hey, we know we had players approached.
Yeah.
I think then it's good to say, okay, did you hear about anybody else? Have you guys even talked about it? I mean, not that it's a big thing, but again, just to be honest about
I think it is. I disagree with you. I think it is a big thing, Steve. I think it is because
I guess I meant not that I think it's a big story, because I think I can see them putting their defenses up saying, oh, you're going to write this. I just want to know how the business is working now. And if we're going to admit it's a business and not an extension of the academic unit because we're going to fix it, we're going to make it entertainment, we're going to make whatever, how does it work for you?
You can ask Saquon Barkley about his contract. You can insert any Pittsburgh Steeler, any NHL player, any baseball player about their contract situation. These aren't contracts, but this is financial related. I do think that maybe isn't being asked enough about. Some of that probably is just
there's a politeness, it's unbecoming to ask somebody their salary, whatever else.
You're not going to do that in the middle of the season, right?
No, so that's why this is the time to do it,
yes,
right? Like, how does it work? And when you first got a payout, were you surprised how much it was? My understanding from as a reporter, if I were covering, is all of you were getting like a flat $25,000 now, whatever. Were you surprised when that happened? That kind of stuff. Or how does it happen? Just, I don't want to know what the number is. I mean, I kind of do, but I don't. But how does it work for you? Like, and is it a game changer, a difference maker? What does it mean? That kind of stuff.
I was just going to ask. That would be my follow up. Is what is it doing for you? Like, what are you doing with that? Are you? I know there's some athletes that donate it back, like to other charities and things like that. But I'm sure for some families that's life-changing money. Like, $25,000 is a lot of money. That's a big chunk of change. Um, you know, how are you supporting your family? Are you supporting your family even with it? I'm sure somebody's probably bought something fun, whether it was an expensive watch or, obviously Bo Parola, this was a car, but he got the car as part of his package. And it was a real nice BMW that I think was like $96,000 somebody posted. So yeah, there's an interesting line of questioning now that NIL has kind of settled down and it's not new, that I think is out there to be asked.
And it's just about the business of the sport. It's not gotcha stuff, and it's not, but I also think it's not for the middle of the season, right? Like this is the time and place for that to happen. So,
right.
And then my fifth, I guess if the one was a most and least, maybe I'm getting sixth here, and this might be closest to a zinger, and it's a little personal. I don't know if it's personal. It's personally curious for me. It would be a Coach Franklin question. The NIL model has this charitable community portion. How do you model that behavior, and what organizations do you support in the county? Like we see that happening. Like I would,
James specifically.
Yes. Like I would love to hear that just piece of it. Because I think going back to the old ladies at this nursing home, right? Oh, there's our charitable work. Well, we showed up. Well, yeah, because you were paid to show up. So that's their model. From you as the coach who has some time and some money to be charitable, how do you do that? How do you tell them this is important? And then how do you show them that if it's about developing people and developing men, whatever, like how do you model that and encourage it?
That's a very fair question. Yeah, because I feel like to a degree we know what Joe did with his money. Not that like it was very easy. He had that house and didn't have a flashy car and donated so much to the library and to really back to the school. And even Bill O'Brien, I feel like we kind of knew, and James Franklin has donated back to the school for sure, and we know that. But there's got to be other organizations, other passions in his life that he supports and wants to help grow that don't necessarily involve the university imprint. So yeah, that's
going back to the start of the season, not in the middle of the season, like innocuous. Hey, this is a good time to talk about something other than some mundane, boring stuff. Hey, here's your chance to get on a platform for those and use your pulpit to like champion those things. So that's all.
It's a fair question.